Good morning, everyone. Welcome to All Fours e-learning classes. Zoology, Chapter 2, Session 3rd. We are discussing the topic the breathing and exchange of gases, in which we discussed the respiratory tract and respiratory organs, right from external nostrils to the bronchioles. It is what's it to be? External nostrils, respiratory, the nasal chamber, internal nostrils, pharynx, larynx, trachea is all what bronchi is what all name it to be the respiratory tract. The remaining part is what name it to be the respiratory organs. Even we discuss as two parts, it is named to be the one is named to be the conducting chamber. It is the conducting one, and another is the exchange one. That is conducting part and the exchange part is what we do discuss in this connection. The respiratory system, which includes the respiratory tract and the organs, can be said to be the conducting part. What do you mean by conducting? Which is taking the gases. So conducting part. Conducting part can be discussed from the external nails to external nails or external nostrils to the what is called a terminal bronchiole. It is the conducting part. Whereas the remaining part, that is respiratory bronchioles, alveolar duct and alveoli, what comes under the exchange part, which is very close to the exchange of gases between the lungs with that of the blood capillaries. So exchange part is the exchange of gases. So right from external nostrils to the terminal bronchiole, it is the conducting part. Alveolar duct, alveoli, what considered to be the exchange part. We have discussed that the external nails, then the nasal chamber, internal nails or internal nostrils, then the pharynx, larynx. Larynx is what we have discussed as a voice box or the sound producing organ. Let's have some recap of this. Larynx is a sound producing organ which is made up of 9 cartilaginous plates. 9 cartilaginous plates. These 9 cartilaginous plates include both paired and unpaired. The paired include are arytenoids, cuneiform, corniculate. These 3 are what the paired. Paired in the sense 3, 6, and unpaired includes the thyroid, which is the largest, epiglottis and cricoid. 3 plus 6, 9 number of cartilaginous plates. In this connection, the case with the thyroid is entirely hyaline cartilage made. We have discussed that cartilage is of hyaline, fibrous, elastic. In this connection, hyaline cartilage examples we discuss as the cartilaginous plates of the voice box or larynx. So the case with the thyroid, next cricoid, major portion of the arytenoid is of hyaline cartilage itself, whereas the tip of the what is called upper portion of the arytenoid we say as the corniculate or Santorini plates. So corniculate or Santorini plates is elastic cartilage made. Then the epiglottis is elastic cartilaginous made, as well as the cuneiform. So if I ask you a question, the number of cartilaginous plates in larynx, how many? 9. That made up of elastic cartilage, corniculate, cuneiform, epiglottis. That made up of hyaline cartilage, thyroid, cricoid and the major portion of almost all entire part of the arytenoid is hyaline. Only the tip, the upper portion, which is corniculate or else Santorini plates, which is elastic made. This is very, very important point to be noted. That's the reason why I revised it. Generally, when compared with the textbook, we have to refer the entire comprehensive knowledge for every topic. That's the reason why we cover with not only within the NCERT or textbook, we cover beyond, which is for the comprehensive knowledge to get the complete information about the subject, which is very, very essential. If you are of that preparation, definitely you are going to score the best in biology. However, in the Neet final examination, we are going to have the 2% in every subject, which means out of 45 questions, there is a chance of 2 questions beyond the textbook. So if we learn the extra information, broad based knowledge, definitely it is going to be effective and scoring. So the larynx, which is of a sound producing organ. How the sound is produced is the question. We discussed that between the thyroid and the arytenoid, there present a pair of fibroelastic structures, name it to be the vocal cords. Vocal cords. Vocal cords are the what vibrated. This vibration generates the sound. Generally, these vocal cords are made up of, the important point to remember and make note, vocal cords made up of elastic connective tissue, and it is lined by non-keratinized stratified epithelium. Particularly for every entrance examination, tissues are going to be play very important role. We have discussed so far that trachea is made up of pseudostratified ciliated epithelium. Next, bronchioles are also made up of pseudostratified ciliated epithelium. And the larynx, which is with the cartilages. So remember this, every chapter in digestive system also we have seen. Histology of gut, serosa, nothing but the epithelium. Next, muscular layer, muscle tissue. Then the columnar epithelium, internally it is lining the innermost layer of the mucosa inside the gut. So here the elastic connective tissue, not to confuse, definitely there is a chance of elastic cartilage, elastic connective tissue. Connective tissue refers to elastic connective tissue, fibrous tissue, what I am saying. Since it is elastic, so it vibrates and that generates the sound. Elastic connective tissue, and it is also with the non-keratinized. Generally, we learn the stratified epithelium, in which one of the type is stratified squamous, which is keratinized, non-keratinized. Keratinized is in the dry surface, whereas non-keratinized is at the moist. So here the vocal cords, the space between the two vocal cords is named to be the rhizoglottis. Now the question is how the sound is produced. When you expire the air, expiring air in the sense exhaling the air, that is sending out the air, this expiring air, what causes the tension on the vocal cords? For suppose when I apply the air on this, it is vibrating. The same way what we see the vibrations. So here the point to remember, the more the tension, the more the sound production, that is the pitch of the sound. Now let us see, how about the case with the pitch, the sound, that is the pitch of the voice, male and female, definitely they show the variation. Basically, the vocal cords are of two types. One true vocal cords and another is the false vocal cords. The true vocal cords for sound production, whereas false vocal cords are for mucus production. So, in the case of the males, the vocal cords are longer and thick, whereas in female it is thin and shorter. One that is thin will vibrate more. The one that is with more tension will vibrate more and produce more high pitch. That's the reason why in females the vocal cords, true vocal cords are thin. So more tension, more pitch. The pitch of the voice depends on the tension. The greater the tension, the greater the pitch. The case with the females, vocal cords are thin, so more tension, more sound production. That is what we are saying is a pitch, high pitch. So male and female are what showing such a difference. The due reason, vocal cords in males is thick and longer, low pitch voice, female thin, shorter, high pitch. And the false vocal cords nothing to do with that of the sound production. Now the question is this quality of the sound is influenced or not? Definitely. Quality is what maintained. The quality of the pitch is what by means of the larynx as well as the oral cavity, and even the sound which can be regulated by the tongue, palate, the muscles of the tongue, the muscles of the palate, the muscles of the pharynx, what to regulate. See that when we are talking, the tongue moves. How? Because of the muscles. This is the reason why we are able to regulate. So, quality of the sound and the regulation of the sound is also being done. The reason for the sound production, just now I told you, the expiring air that initiates the vibration in the vocal cords. The initiation of vibration in vocal cords produce the sound, and low pitch in males, high pitch in the females. This is what we do discuss regarding the larynx as a sound producing organ, voice box. Let's see certain differences between the pharynx and larynx. Pharynx is throat. Pharynx is throat. Larynx is sound producing organ. Next, this is the one. This is a structure responsible for common platform for air and what is called the food, whereas this is for sound production. That's what we do discuss, the pharynx and the larynx. And one more point also I told you, syrinx is a sound producing organ in the case of the birds. Yes. Next, move on to the trachea. Trachea is nothing but the windpipe. Windpipe trachea is what posterior of the larynx continues. Trachea is made up of C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Find the difference between, if I draw the two circles, look at here and here, what difference you find? What difference you find is, this is incomplete circle, is it right? Which means C-shape, in the sense this portion is what absent. That's what the cartilaginous rings are absent on one of the sides. They are absent. That's what it makes a shape called C-shaped cartilaginous rings. And it is made up of pseudo-stratified ciliated epithelium, cilia, whose vibration, what causes the flow of the air. And it is made up of the goblet cells, which produce the mucus. Mucus make the air and the dust particles. Particularly, it traps the dust particles and squeezes it into the throat, that is pharynx, from where we sends out. Frequently the phlegm we see, that is nothing but because of the action of the cilia. Cilia that as well as pseudostratified ciliated epithelium contain goblet cells. Goblet cell produce the mucus. Mucus what? Trap the dust particles, which squeezed into the pharynx. From there it is sends out. So that is an advantage. Pseudostratified epithelium, ciliated epithelium, and it is with the C-shaped cartilaginous rings, and that is, remember, it is also hyaline cartilage. Again I am repeating every part where we discuss the kind of a tissue that it composes. So hyaline cartilage, pseudostratified ciliated epithelium. Now answer. Windpipe made up of dash cartilage. What is the answer you give? Hyaline cartilage. Windpipe made up of dash epithelium. What answer you give? Pseudostratified ciliated epithelium. Next, we move on to the trachea, which is bifurcated at the fifth thoracic vertebrae. At the fifth, the thoracic vertebrae. Generally, we know very well that is a vertebral column is regionalized into 5 regions: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and caudal. So at the fifth thoracic vertebrae region, we are comparing the location. It's not that it is associated with that. At the region of the fifth, at the location of the fifth thoracic vertebrae, the trachea is bifurcated into the bronchi, which is made up of pseudostratified ciliated epithelium, and it is also primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi. And it is with C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Furtherly, bronchi divides into bronchioles, primary bronchiole, secondary bronchiole. Look at here the diagram I have drawn. Primary bronchiole, this is, into secondary bronchioles. Next, tertiary bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, terminal. Up to here it is said to be the conducting part. Just now we have discussed. Right from external nostrils, nasal chamber, internal nostrils, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, primary bronchiole, secondary bronchiole, tertiary bronchiole, terminal bronchiole, it is conducting part. And this lead into respiratory bronchiole. Respiratory bronchiole lead into cluster of the alveolar duct. Alveolar duct. Look at here the diagram. Primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi. Further into bronchiole, primary bronchiole, secondary bronchiole, tertiary bronchiole, terminal bronchiole, and respiratory bronchiole. This respiratory bronchiole leads into the cluster of alveolar duct. What the diagram you are observing is all these are what? Nothing but the alveoli. Alveolar sac, this is all together. And from this the ducts originates are alveolar ducts. So the respiratory bronchiole lead into the cluster of this is a alveolar duct, alveolar duct, alveolar duct, alveolar duct, cluster of alveolar duct into which the respiratory bronchiole lead. And this representation gave resemble that of the what is called a branched tree, which is downward or else inverted. A branched tree, what we draw, it is narrow and broad. Look at here, narrow up and branched at the bottom. So that's what its expansion, the branching of the bronchi and bronchiole shows it is a branched tree which is moved downward, inverted like. That's all what about the conducting part. That is from external nostrils into the what is called terminal bronchiole. The next is the exchange part, the alveolar duct with that of the alveoli. Now let's see, this is what integral part of the lungs. So now we'll go for the structure of the lungs. Right, lungs. Lungs are considered to be the pulmonary sacs. Lungs are a pair in number, pinkish colored pulmonary sacs situated in the thoracic cavity. Lungs are lined by means of pleural membrane. What we say is a pleural membrane. That is, lungs are lined by means of pleural membrane or pleura, which is of the outer parietal and inner what is called a splanchnic. So outer pleural membrane, inner pleural membrane. Outer pleural membrane what touches to the what is called thoracic lining. Inner pleural membrane lines the lungs. In between that the fluid is present, what we say is a pleural fluid. The pleural fluid lubricates. You can see lining the heart, pericardium, pericardial fluid, lubrication or softening, kidneys, fluid, testicular fluid, synovial fluid. These are all for what is called lubrication or softening. Right. Now we see the lungs situation in the thorax by means of, it is present, its location if we observe, it is dorsally bound by vertebral column, ventrally it is by sternum, laterally by ribs, and the bottom it is by diaphragm, which means lungs are bound by dorsally thoracic vertebrae. Dorsally the vertebral column, ventrally sternum, laterally ribs, and diaphragm posteriorly it is bound by. In fact, we say the lungs in the thoracic cavity which act as a airtight chamber. What do you mean by that? It means that change in the thoracic volume. When I say what we are observing, we are not observing the change in the lungs, but we are observing the change in the thoracic cavity. A change in the thoracic cavity bring about the change in the lungs, which means the thoracic cavity where lungs are present is an airtight chamber. It does not act independently. Lungs do not bring about changes on their own, but the change in the thoracic cavity bring about the change in the lungs. Now, lungs paired to, that is right lung, left lung. The right lung and the left lung. Left lung have two lobes, name it to be the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. Here, that is by means of an oblique fissure. Oblique, look at here, oblique fissure. It is regionalized into superior lobe and inferior lobe. Next, the right lung is, which is with the two fissures. Fissure means partition. So here, the right lung will have two fissures. One is the horizontal fissure and another is the oblique fissure. This two fissures divides the lung into the superior lobe, SL I have written, superior lobe, middle lobe and inferior lobe, three lobes. So the number of lobes in the lungs is none other than, it is nothing but both together 5, 2 of the left and 3 of the right side. In terms of the liver also we have seen the left lobe, 1, right lobe with 3 we have discussed, right caudate, right proper lobe, and one more middle lobe we have seen. proper, quadrate and the caudate. 3 of right side, 1 left. So liver with 2 primarily and totally 4. Whereas lungs is with 2 plus 3, 5. This is what important to be noted. So lungs with the left lung with the 2 lobes by partition oblique fissure, right lobe with 3 by 2 fissures. Now what are the differences between the right and left lung? Generally the left lung is narrower or smaller when compared with the right lung. Look at here, you find certain change in its broadness or narrowness or else the size. Right lung is broader and larger, whereas the left lung is narrower and smaller. Why? Basically between the right and the left lung there present a cavity which is named to be the mediastinum. Strictly speaking it can be said to be a partition, but it is a what is called a cavity. Generally here where the lungs is present, between the 2 lungs a cavity is present named to be the mediastinum, where the heart is present. And heart, we all know that heart is of what is called the fist shaped and is of slightly bent left side. The bending of the heart left side where it forms a notch in the lungs. What I am saying is between the 2 lungs there present a cavity. Some consider it is a partition, but it is a cavity where the heart is present. Heart is tilt left side slightly, and this tilting of the lung to the left side what makes a depression which is what name it to be the cardiac notch. And this is what we find the differences between the right and left lung. Right lung larger and broader, left lung smaller and narrower. Right lung with the 2 features, one horizontal fissure and oblique fissure, left lung only oblique fissure. Right lung is with the 3 lobes, left lung is with the 2 lobes. This is what the difference we find between the right and left lungs. So internally the trachea enter into the at the 5th thoracic vertebrae. It is partitioned, it is bifurcated and enter into the lungs of respective side. Primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, furtherly into bronchioles, primary bronchiole, secondary bronchiole, tertiary bronchiole, terminal bronchiole, respiratory bronchiole. Look at here, the respiratory, the terminal bronchiole, till up to that we have discussed it is a conducting part. So this lead into respiratory bronchiole. Respiratory bronchiole lead into cluster of the alveolar duct. The cluster means group, cluster of alveolar duct. Alveoli are sac-like structures. Generally, together with the 2 lungs, the number of the alveoli we consider is 3 million number of 300 million of 300 million number of the alveoli are present in both the lungs. 300 million number. Alveoli is a, so imagine it increases the surface area of the lungs. Alveoli is lined by means of simple squamous epithelium. Simple squamous epithelium. And it is highly vascularized. Again the example of the tissue, simple squamous epithelium. And this alveoli is lined by means of lecithin, a layer or membrane. Alveoli is lined by means of lecithin, and this reduces the tension at the lungs. Generally, the newborn babies rarely due to genetical defect, may be born with the alveoli without the lecithin. So, as lecithin is there, absent or lack due to defect, inborn error, the babies that are born with the defect are named to be the inborn babies, inborn error babies, in which as lecithin is absent, the collapse of the alveoli takes place, leading to the collapse of the lungs and lead to death. This lecithin what reduces the tension, and this is how the strengthening, that is the tension, it is reduced, so they efficiently what work. Certain times we see, particularly with the tobacco smoking, the alveoli of lungs are what damaged, soleated, folded, the alveolar walls damages the alveoli, leading to emphysema.